Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Dan with Hip Hops. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I'm going to be pairing up Old Irving Brewing's Things We Don't Say, and I will be matching that up with Saba's Care For Me. So stay tuned. I'll talk a little bit about the album, taste test the beer, and remember, if you could like and subscribe, it would help me a lot. All right, so Old Irving Brewing is located in the Irving Park neighborhood, and there's the Old Irving neighborhood. We have a bunch of neighborhoods here in Chicago, and that is one of them, being with Irving Park being pretty much right next door. So the full name of this beer is called Things We Don't Say, Craft Beer for Mental Health. And it is a collaboration with a nonprofit called Hope for the Day. And Hope for the Day, like I said, is a nonprofit, and their focus is on a mission for suicide prevention as well as mental health education. So this is a double dry hopped IPA, and I have it jotted down here, 6% ABV, and it's hopped with Galaxy, Cashmere, Azaka, and El Dorado. So this did come out a couple months ago, and I've had a few of them. I've had several of them now, and I really dig this beer. I just took some time to do this. And also, if you hear any thunder or anything, there's pretty bad storms rolling through right now, so apologies. Yeah, so this beer, it's a hazy beer, but it's got some bitterness to it. And you can see when you pour it, it doesn't come through as thick like the candle wax that you see sometimes. But a very good beer. So yeah, Old Irving, located in Chicago in the Old Irving neighborhood. They have a really good brew pub with really great food. The head brewer Trevor and the owner Trevor, he's one of the partners. He actually used to work with a famous chef here in Chicago, he's since passed away, but he developed this idea. The chef asked him, like, what do you want to do? Because he's done back of house, front of house, he's done a little bit of everything. And he said he wanted to open a brewery. He was home brewing. So the beer is very well done, and I will say that the food is also equally as well done. And they have great options. It's like a great location. It's a little hard to get to right now with Montrose blocked off towards Cicero, but definitely worth the trip. Yeah, this is a very good IPA. So this Things We Don't Say, the Hope for the Day, one of their slogans is "It's okay not to be okay," and they came out with little bracelets and stuff. I think I have mine sitting over there. But this can, as you can see, it's got different hotlines for different. So you have National Suicide Prevention hotline, National Sexual Assault hotline, Crisis Text hotline for veterans, the Trevor Project, which is for LGBTQ youth, and they have a couple other ones, as well as a QR code, which will take you to Hope for the Day's website, where they have information. And the concept behind this is that they noticed that in the craft beer industry, that mental health isn't something that's really talked about, and so they wanted to have this beer be a conversation starter to help spur curiosity with education, as well as to help open that door to foster conversation, to reach out to your friend and say, hey, like, if you're not doing okay, don't hold it in. It's completely normal. Like, everyone has those time frames where they're feeling a little bummed out, as Dwight Schrute would say. But yeah, so I've loved this beer every time I've had it. I love pretty much everything that Old Irving does. Yeah, so this beer, there has been 150 different breweries, over 150 different breweries that are collaborating with this, doing this project. This one sort of followed that Black is Beautiful project. It was sort of like the same concept, but for mental health at a much smaller scale than the Black is Beautiful. But it's a really cool project, and you can see here so it's hosted by Hope for the Day, which I said is a nonprofit, as well as Eagle Park Brewing Company, which I think is in Milwaukee. It's for sure in Wisconsin. I'm pretty sure it's in Milwaukee though. And they also have support through a couple different companies, where Ego Proof, which helped design the labels and everything. Maltarup, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but they were offering discounts for the brewing members who were wanting to be involved with this for the malt, because the idea is that some of the proceeds would be donated from this beer from each of the breweries that were involved with the collaboration to Hope for the Day to further their education. Yeah, so Hop Smash, Hollandberry and Son Inc., which is a hop company. So yeah, very cool. And I paired this up with Saba's, who is coincidentally also a Chicago rapper. So I got a little Chicago collab going here. This is the Vinyl Me Please pressing. I took it out of the wrapper because it was going to be noisy and pretty annoying to try to take out of this. So this is the original press when they did it. They've since redone this, and then Saba has also redone this without the Vinyl Me Please stamps and all that. But you can see here, it is on this gray vinyl. You got the Saba on one side, Care For Me on the other side. I'll leave that out of the jacket for now. And then you got the stencil, just says Care For Me in the black lettering, like a graffiti tag lettering. And then of course the booklet, which we got the picture of Saba here. And it's got the different lyrics in it. You can see here just some images and the lyrics in the book here. Saba is definitely one of my favorite Chicago rappers. He sort of came about in the scene. First time I heard him was on a Chance the Rapper song, Angels, and he just was on the chorus or the hook for that, and I really dug his voice, and I decided to check him out. And at that time he had Bucket List Project up here. That one was out, or it came out just shortly after that, or right around the same time, and I just fell in love with it because he's a great MC. He's great at his flow, his rhyming, his everything, but then he also has like the new age style beat, so it sort of blends like that new age hip hop, where he's got a little bit of R&B mixed in it, where he's kind of singing a little bit, but then he can definitely rhyme, and you can pick that up in this project. And this came out in 2018. You can see here it's just got him sitting in like a kitchen. And the concept behind Care For Me is sort of a concept album where it deals with mental health, and he said that he had all these feelings, and he was seeing all this stuff around him, and he never heard anyone express it the way he does in this album. And so it's his second studio album following in the Bucket List Project, and his cousin, and who was also his best friend, Walt, he passed away from a stabbing here in Chicago, and it really took its toll on Saba. And it's a heavy influence in this whole project. His life growing up with him, as well as the day, like him passing and dealing with that as a family member and a best friend. And I'll start with the song Life. And I will say one more thing, is that the project doesn't just evolve around his cousin. Well, it revolves around everyday life growing up where Saba grew up in the west side of Chicago. And it deals with police officers profiling him. It deals with this urge, like, from society to be a fighter, and how he says, like, it's not him, like he was doing it to like fit in because he felt like that's what he was supposed to do growing up, but it's not who he is. And it talks about different perspectives from himself, as well as from the idea, like the eyes of a female, and the eyes of everyone surrounding him, from his uncle passing away after just getting out of prison. There's a lot of different hurt and pain. You can really feel it in his voice when you're listening to the project. All right, so the first song I'm going to play for you here is called Life. I believe this was the first single that came off of this album, and this one is just about his life growing up, And this is where he talks about his uncle passing away, his cousin getting killed with a pocket knife, which was Walt, and just life in general. But it's got a very, I love the beat in it, and it's sort of, it's one of those songs that the beat makes you want to listen to it, but then when you start listening to the words, you realize like how depressing it is and how what in a dark place he is. And yeah, I mean, this whole album is chock full of that, and I think it's important to say when you're not okay, and he definitely was doing it.
I got my granddad in school. I'm at war, that's on my mind. I see Walter body cool. Wish I could switch you with mine. I'm not worried about no rap shit. Distractions always the times. I still go to social functions, even though I'm so anti. No, I'm no Rihanna, the girl gonna throw it like Donovan down. But I just been modeling my whole career as a pop was a studio monitor shaking. I raised the apartment to bond over profit. I made what I made it a lot. I'm not a talk the same amount of time he was watching. So some compare me to people loyal, I'm not them. A lot of people dreaming till they shit and get shot. That's life. My mom used to rock with the Sprite. Kill my cousin with a fucking knife. Saw my uncle on the phone. He was so from work, it was my life. He got out of here and then he died. I was on the road, talking to my daughter on the phone. Left the city when I was just born and I knew it'd be the loan. Going back and hitting with the cold. I returned to put my niggas cool. Now they trying to take his life.
Alright, so that was Life. The next song I'm going to play for you is called Busy, and this is featuring a artist, R&B artist, The Mind. And it's a two-part song. The second, it's like a busy / sirens, but I'm gonna focus on the busy side. And this is about his life as an artist, and sort of, even though he's famous and he's got all these fans and everything like that, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's a happy person. He talks about in this song about he's back home off a tour. He's seen his friends several times, and then like months later they're like, oh, how was tour? And he just says like, it's all small talk, and how to him, he hasn't like said something, a line about like not trusting anybody since he was 12, and how there's just a piece of him missing since his cousin passed away, and just sort of that isolation that celebrity can bring, and being famous can bring, and yeah, it's just, he doesn't know who to trust and who to look towards anymore, that his best friend's gone.
I'm so alone. For all of my friends got some shit to do. Yeah. All of them got plans, I call them my bad and text, and they never cross me like bad pedestrians. I've been this opposite adolescence. I don't know how long I had depression, never know peer pressure. I'm trying to get my little pack of offense. Some girl I call my BFF, that ain't no secret kept. I fucked next to my cousin, I'm broke, I wasn't buzzing. I tried to hit a few years, she wasn't budging. I'm bogus, look my girl with some shorty deserving all this lonely. You saying, tell me how are you saying? You got all of these friends, you got all of these fans. I ain't trust nobody new since 2012, I ain't let nobody in. Jesus got killed for our sins, Walter got killed for a coat. I'm trying to cope, but it's a part of me gone. In the power I don't know. Busy day, I'll get you back right away. I say that sky's full of rain. I don't do what you say.
So the next song and last song I'm going to play for you is called Fighter. And this one is with another R&B. This is a female R&B artist called Kaina, Kaina. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this is the one, I mentioned it earlier, where he said that like you're sort of like expected to be a fighter. And this is a storytelling song where initially it's talking about as a kid he would get in these fights, and he like beat somebody up one day, and he had this rivalry with this other kid, and that kid eventually, I think it like sucker punched him one day, and he got beat up, and he just talks about how like where that spreads. And then he jumps to later on, he's a little older, I think in high school or middle school, and there's these three guys that are trying to jump him. And out of the corner of his eye, he sees this guy that he had the rivalry with, and he's thinking like, oh God, like seriously, like this isn't the time. And then that kid like jumps in to help him, and just sort of these stories of his life. And then he goes from like that like literal meaning of fighting, fist fighting, to fighting with his grandpa over dropping out of college to become a hip hop artist. And then he goes to fighting with his girlfriend, and how he has a line in there where he like interrupts his girlfriend while they're in the car having a conversation, and his girlfriend sort of like snaps at him in a justified way. He lets you know that he's never listening. He's always just waiting to talk. And that line, for some reason, has always stuck with me. Like, you have to be a good listener. You can't be waiting to jump in to interject your words. Let people be heard. And then after that, he moves on to fighting with himself, and he references like fighting to get out of bed, and just that black hole that depression is that he is facing. So I'll play that one next. This one, again, it's called Fighter.
So me and he got me scrapping, and Jacob jumped in. I'm handicapped, man. He watched from across the street. Then he ran up and hopped on me. 3 on 1, they teaming up, but me, I never think to run. They circling around, got me surrounded like police or something. So it's bad enough they already jumping me. Then I see Sal coming. I'm praying, please don't fuck with me. It's not fair, and I think he agrees. So instead of fighting with them, he came and teamed up with me. Me and Grandpa ain't talked since I stopped attending the college. He called me, said I'm a scholar. I should be getting my doctorate or shit, at least in the army. Instead, you chose to hip hop. I know how this is going to end, cause I went through this with your father. Me and my girl just fought, cause I talked before she could talk. She was telling a story. I could have offered some shit, not about the same topic. So she just stopped in the middle before the plot hit the rest of the car. I sounded like you always do this, like you don't value my thoughts. Either that or you too damn stupid to realize that if you don't hear me out, then I'ma feel muted. You say that you care, well show it. I'm not asking a lot. I know you think you listening, but you just waiting to talk. My fault. I don't wanna fight no more, 'cause I'm not fighting.
So that's my 3 favorite tracks off of this album. It's a very important album in terms of getting in the mind of somebody who grows up west side of Chicago, becomes famous. I was reading a lot of stories about how him and his cousin, they were part of this Pivot Gang, which is this rap group. They were actually really well known in a local arts group on the north side of Chicago, where they would do like poetry slams and like that type of thing. And they became really interested in the artistry of it. And Saba, they were all going to have their career. Saba is the one that made it the furthest. His cousin Walt didn't make it very far from outside forces. But it's a very emotional, vulnerable album. And there's some artists, in my opinion, in the mainstream that try to do that, but they don't come off as genuine. This 100% does to me. I will say, musically, this one leans maybe a little more towards the new age hip hop. He still is rapping in some of the songs, but it does have a little more of the new age beats and the singing. And Bucket List Project, if you're not familiar with, you should check out. That one is a really good project. So I think that one might be my favorite a little more than Care For Me, but Care For Me is definitely a solid project. And Old Irving, if you see any of these things we don't say, they're mostly going to be IPAs, but they mentioned that on the Hope for the Day website, if you don't brew IPAs, if your brewery's a Saison brewery or whatever, not a big deal. They're just trying to get people involved to create the conversation. But the idea is that they would follow this recipe that Eagle Park created, and that they would all give their own little twist to it. So this is Old Irving's twist to the Eagle Park recipe. So if you see any of these, definitely pick them up. It's for a good cause. And if you're ever in Chicago, Old Irving is definitely a brewery I would suggest to check out. Especially, they do IPAs, hazy IPAs really well. They do West Coast IPAs really well. They do stouts really well. They do just about everything really, really well. And the food's amazing, so definitely take the time to get a bite as well. And until next week, I always say next week and it never ends up being 1 week, but I got a couple lined up, so I'm hoping I can get back on the ball with this and start churning these out a little better. So until next week, drink some new beer and listen to some new music. Cheers.